There we go. All right. All right. Let me know when you can see fund reconciliation.
You can see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Um, okay. So for today, we are going to just wrap up some of the funding and costs that we talked about from last time, and then we're going to jump into more quality stuff today. Um, so funding limit reconciliation is really just looking at, okay, how much money funds do I have? I guess any limits on the commitment. So um, what that means is that sometimes, like even for UCLA, so you have money set aside for particular projects, and there could be there could be reserves that you can use, or sometimes what you get is what you get, wherein you don't have any reserves whatsoever. Let's say Cinderella, your project is 1 million. That's it, not a buck more. So okay, that's what I'm dealing with. Other times you have, now you can have some contingency reserves, about 10%. And if needed, you need to ask permission. You can have some management reserves. And I actually have a slide here to explain that. Um, Other times, you have, especially for UCLA, donations wherein the donations have restrictions. So let's say Nick, he felt really good, like, had a good life, and I'm going to donate 20 million for research of, pediatric cancer. But I only want this funding to focus on blood-related cancers, right? So that is a restriction on the funding. So um, I worked with City of Hope before, and they get a lot of donations from different donors. Um, and those donations have very strict limits on funding. And so you need to make sure that, you're not just from an ethical standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint, you're you're recognizing and abiding by whatever restrictions they have on those funds. There's a lot of, and we don't need to get into it for our purposes. But there's a lot of tax implications around these donations, and also how you report them, and all sorts of things. But for our purposes, what we need to know if we get funding, this is something that you can use today as well. You can ask your project sponsor, hey, is any of this funding from donation or donors? And if they say yes, then you can ask, are there any restrictions with that donation? Right. So that's something that you can do right now for any of your projects. So again, a lot of research stuff is heavily funded by grants and all of that. So understanding your funding limit and reconciling what you can use and also what are actuals is your funding limit
Going on.
reconciliation. All right. So another thing to factor in is, let's say that your project is long term, and you're getting either funding either throughout the year or across fiscal years. So you need to understand that as well. Are we all funded within this fiscal year, or are we getting half of it this fiscal year and another half the next fiscal year? Just understanding the flow of your funding is also very important. So for us, our fiscal year ends June 30. And so if if you're doing any capital related projects, you typically try to reconcile everything, prior to that June 30 so that you can close out the books And as you start July 1st, you're going out with a clean slate. Or if it's a project that crosses over that fiscal year, you want to understand, okay, how much is coming in for this fiscal year? So again, it could be a steady stream, or it could be large sporadic amounts, at the start of a fiscal year. So these are things that are good to know, especially if you're dealing with procurement, and just to make sure that as you start reconciling these things, you don't end up in a situation wherein, it's not balanced. So especially for us, uh, we do a lot of recharges. When we were rolling out U-Plan or Clarity PPM to the other campuses, the work that the vendor would do would just all come out of UCLA. So we had to do a lot of recharging to like UCI, UC San Diego, UC San Francisco, Office of the President. And so there's a lot of reconciliation that we had to do quarterly and towards the end of the year. If you don't have to do that with your current projects, thank, thank your lucky stars, because sometimes the reconciliation of the funding of the project could be as tedious, if not more, than the actual work of the project. And it's it's yeah, it gets tedious. So the key here, both for the test and in IRL in real life, is try to, keep it tidy. So if you can review it, weekly, pay period, or monthly, try not to go beyond monthly, because it gets pretty cumbersome if you're trying to do reconciliation on a quarterly basis. So the shorter the timeline, the better, looking at what was allocated and where you are with your actuals. So that's funding limit reconciliation. So for this next slide, we're going to spend some time here because these are, make this bigger. Um, there we go. Can you guys see this? Okay. All right. So we're going to spend some time here because you will definitely get a question around this in the test, right? So first and foremost, your initial cost that you submit, if there are any changes to it, um, if it's approved, that becomes your cost baseline, right? And so for your project budget, let's start here from the very, right of this chart. So all of your activities have a cost associated with it. So if you add up all of your activity cost estimate, if you add up all of the activity costs, that's called your activity cost estimates. Is that clear? So all of your activity line items, if you just add them all up, that's going to be your activity cost estimates. Now, your activity cost estimates, let's say that you have a contingency for that, let's say 10%. That's called your activity contingency reserve. So it's your activity cost, let's say plus 10%. That's called your activity cost contingency reserve. Okay. Let me stop right there. Is that clear, these two items here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. If you add the activity cost, again, all the line items, right? You just add them all up. Let's say you have 10 line items, 10 activities, you add them all up. That's your activity cost estimates. Let's say you add 10% to that. That's your contingency reserve, activity contingency reserve. If you add these two guys, that is equal to what's called your work package cost estimate. So this one right here. So for the test, work package cost estimate is equal to the activity cost estimates plus your activity contingency reserve. So these two guys are the same as the work package cost estimates. Let me stop right there. Was that clear? Okay. See some nods? All right. All good, Patrick? With me so far?
I'm with you.
Okay, cool. So now the work package cost estimate, let's say that you're given an extra 10%. This is a very generous project sponsor. If you're given another 10% on top of your work package cost estimate, that is now called your contingency reserve, right? So that's the extra. So if you add your work package cost estimate plus your contingency reserve, that is now called your control accounts. If you guys remember from our last meeting, control accounts. For the test, your control accounts is the same thing as your cost baseline. So these two guys are the same. So this is when you say cost baseline, they're talking about control accounts, which is the same as your work package cost estimates plus the reserve on that. So again, for the test, if you're using your activity contingency reserve and also you can call this work package contingency reserve, for these two guys right here, you need to inform the project sponsor, but you don't need to ask permission. This is within your right as a project manager to use these reserves. You just need to inform. You don't need to ask for permission. Everyone with me so far? Okay. All right. Now, let's say that Kelly is on your team and boy, does she just go through costs like nobody's business. She's ordering, tiles from Sicily and nails from Florence and just very just the best of the best, but you're going through you're just going through costs like crazy. Now you need more money. If you run through all of your cost baseline and you need more money, you're going to ask for what's called management reserve, right? The management reserve, again, for the test, you need to ask permission. So this is not within your control. This is the project sponsor or your, executive committee giving you the permission to use it. So the difference between management reserve and contingency reserve is management reserve requires permission. Contingency reserve just needs, your sponsors just need to be informed. So activity contingency inform, contingency reserve inform, management reserve ask permission. Now, if you add cost baseline in management reserve, that is now called your project budget. So the project budget is your cost baseline plus management reserve. Remember this because you're more likely than not to get a question around, does your project budget include management reserve? So now looking at this chart, the answer is yes, right? Yes, it is included. Now, if they ask you, does cost baseline include management reserve? The answer is no, right? Because management reserve is the extra above the cost baseline. So cost baseline, usually a percentage, plus say 10%. That's your management reserve. So, all right, let us drill this in. Lizette, so look at the chart and you tell me what I'm talking about. That cool?
Mhm.
Okay. So if I look at all the activities in my project and I add up all the costs, which one am I talking about?
Would it be the work package cost estimates?
So I'm just looking at all the activities. So let's say there's 10 activities.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the activity cost estimates.
Perfect. Perfect. And the key word there is I'm adding it all up, right? So there's 10 activities, I'm adding it all up, the cost of it, and that's activity cost estimates. Kelly or Tuno, if I add, say, 10% on top of that, what is that called?
Activity contingency reserve.
Yes, activity contingency reserve. Sweta, if I'm using activity contingency reserve, do I need to ask permission?
No,
What do I need to do?
inform.
Inform, absolutely. Victor, are you there, buddy?
I'm here.
Victor, if I add up my activity cost estimate and my activity contingency reserve, what is that called?
The work package cost estimate.
Beautiful, beautiful. Chris. So Chris, if I add 10% to my work package cost estimate, what am I working on?
Your contingency reserve, and then
Yes.
that makes the control account together.
And adding that, yes, absolutely. Kenny, do I need permission to use my contingency reserve?
No, you do not.
What do I need to do?
You just need to notify them that you're going to be using it.
Notify, absolutely.
Hmm.
Edward Connolly,
Yep.
if I'm adding up my work package cost estimate plus my contingency reserve, what am I getting at?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Yeah, if I'm looking at my work package cost estimate and I'm adding a contingency reserve to that, what is that called?
Management reserve.
No, that's let's see. Elicio, what is that one called?
Your cost baseline,
Which is the same
which is
as,
your account, which is equal to your control account.
which is equal to control account. So Edward, let me go back to you. So my control account, does that include contingency reserve or not?
No.
It does. So control account is this guy right here. So control account includes contingency reserve and work package estimate. So Edward, if I'm using contingency reserve, do I need to ask permission?
No.
No. All I need to do is
Inform.
inform. Perfect. Nikki,
Yes.
what's the synonym or another term that we can use for control account?
Cost baseline.
Cost baseline, absolutely. Jennifer Palomo Hernandez.
Yes.
So Jennifer, I ran through my cost baseline and I need to ask for more money. What am I asking for?
The management reserve?
Management reserve. And can I access this without getting permission?
No.
No. Awesome. Monica de la Cruz. So
Fine.
Monica, if I'm adding up my cost baseline plus my management reserve, what does that equal?
Your project budget.
Your project budget. Awesome. Okay, I think that was record time.
Can you say that one more time? The last one
Oh
is.
man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm taking notes. I got it wrong, so I just want to make sure I
kidding,
understand.
I'm kidding. I'm just
Okay.
messing with you. As I said, man, that was record time. Can you do that one more time? Okay. That was too good. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Um, from which part? We can start from
The cost, I have you used a different term, not the cost baseline, I think. You said for the
control
control
account.
account.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. Okay, I have that.
So the control account is the equivalent of your work package cost estimates plus the contingency reserve, right? These two guys. So
Thank
that's
you.
the same as your control account. And another term for it is your cost baseline. And I can't see who's talking. Is that you, Jasmine? It's not lighting up on my.
Oh, this is Alicia.
Oh, Alicia. So, Alicia, so question for you, Alicia. Cost baseline. Does that include contingency reserve or management reserve?
Contingency reserve.
Contingency, yes. Victor, you have a question, sir.
Yeah, so I get that when if more money is needed, so the management reserve is required, then it's called the project budget. But is there ever a time when we don't need to tap into that management reserve? And this is
100%. Yeah. So
so
if that, so what you can do is, so you always want to have that pre-approved if you can, right? Say 10%. But you can't access it without letting them know. So in terms of the planning, so you can say, let's say your cost baseline is 1 million, and then you ask for, pre-approval for 100,000, which is 10%. But before you actually withdraw from that, you have to ask permission from the group. Now,
so
if you don't have management reserve, then your cost baseline is the same as your project budget.
oh, got it. Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure if the kids are in like tricky questions.
Yes. Now that's a really good question. So remember I said early on, like if they tell you here's like 1 million and not a buck more, right? Then that means that actually that's a tricky question. So if they say here's $1 million, Kenny, and not a dollar more, the question you should ask is oh, so um if that is everything, then that's actually your cost baseline, right? So for your purposes, you need to see if you can fit everything within your work package estimate and then have some reserve, like 10% for your contingency that you can access. But that's it. That's your ceiling. That's all you're getting. Jeffrey, you have a question.
In that example, I mean, could it be where the work package contingency reserve that normally doesn't require permission,
Yep.
that for that project they would require permission just to make, since they're not getting a dollar more beyond that, so in other words, the work package contingency reserve almost gets treated like the management reserve. Does
That's
that happen?
yeah. So another way of looking at it is, I what I would do is they say you're getting 1 million and not a buck more, then I would treat that as my cost baseline. And internally, I would say I'm gonna try to fit everything 900,000, right? And then I'll have a buffer of 100,000. I'm gonna try to do my best to do that so that I'm not like, managing to the dollar without any buffer. But yeah, so if let's say it's 1,010,000 bucks, you actually need to ask for permission because they said not a dollar more. So that means that all the reserves, everything that you have access to is included. So that's cost baseline. So yeah. Chris,
I have a semantic question.
sure.
So, when we're adding a percent on top of our activity cost estimates, we call it an activity contingency reserve.
Yep.
But then when we're adding percent on our work package cost estimates, it's just called contingency reserve.
Contingency. Yeah,
So
yeah.
do we call it like the project contingency reserve or work package contingency reserve, or I
Yeah,
just wanted to double check.
that's a good point. So in real life, yes, you can call it work package continuous reserve. I think that's a really good call out for the test when it's just contingency reserve. So write this down. Contingency reserve is the same as work package contingency reserve. Yeah, that's a good call out.
Okay, thanks.
Well, the other one, right, is activity cost contingency reserve. And so that's the activity contingency reserve. So
Okay, so if they don't specify, it's the work package contingency reserve.
absolutely, absolutely.
Sorry,
Yep.
Ian, I didn't catch that. Contingency reserve is the same as what?
Work package contingency
Oh.
reserve. Yeah. So if they don't call out, if they just say contingency reserve, they're talking about work package contingency reserve. Awesome. Well, thank you for the questions because this slide right here, I'm sure you're going to get at least one or two questions because a lot of folks get this confused, especially if you've been working for a while. You typically think that the project budget is, your cost baseline, but it's not. So awesome. All right. Any questions before we move on? Good. Awesome. All right. Now we're gonna continue on. Make this smaller again. So now that you know all of that, anticipating future budget challenges, usually, budget challenges occur if, let's say, for example, for the most part, it's if there's new requirements that are added, right? So let's say, Kelly, you're working on a clinical project and a doctor says, oh, it would be really nice if we can add another dashboard or another flow chart or another, whatever it is that you're building. And that requires, more hours from your resources. And so budget challenges usually come about because of increase in scope. And so anticipating that, that's why we have all of these reserves, right? Because no project is ever, rarely, I should say, I'd say never, but more often than not, as you learn more about what you're doing, then you get more requests. There's more, ooh, I wonder if it can do this type of examples. And so with that, you have, more requests that requires more money. And that's usually the case. Now, there are also instances wherein, the cost of materials, let's say if you're building something or ordering, let's say computers, servers, things like that, the cost might go up. And especially with our current situation right now with tariffs and all of that, um, you, you you see companies, trying to order up, right, in bulk so that they can avoid the increase in cost with all the tariffs going on. So those are some of the causes. Another cause would be, let's say that you have, resource turnover and you need to get a contractor to fill in. So that's also gonna blow your budget. So these are some of the common things that you need to think about as you're looking at the budget. All right. So these are different things to look at as you're putting together a budget. And it's again, it's both a science and an art because there are things that you just don't know of that might come up. So this is where asking people who have done similar projects are really helpful. Just ask, hey, what are some of the hidden costs that came up that you didn't anticipate? And so you want to be able to capture as much as possible. We are literally in the process of doing this for FPG, for the interactive phone system. And one of the variables that we have there is like volume of calls for, after go live. So we're just putting in estimates because you don't know. You don't know. You have an idea from last year, right? So you just use that and, add a certain percentage. But no one knows how many calls you're gonna get next year, right? Or the year after and the year after that. So you do your best guess to to make sure that you have some buffer so that when the actuals come in, hopefully, you're under whatever the reserve line is. So all right. Okay. Um so that's that. All right. So any questions before we dive into
Can I see the last slide, Ian? I'm sorry. Okay.
yeah, this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
Give me a
worries.
sec. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, take your time. Yeah, here we're just talking about making sure that you're looking at anything and everything that might give you a better idea as to um any cost that might come up, outside of the usual, like your people and equipment and things like that.
You.
Yeah. All right. So before we move into a different subject matter altogether, any questions with funding and budgets and things like that? Good for now? Okay. All right. So now we're going to move into a different topic altogether. Oh, no worries, Melissa. Um, all right. Quality. So a lot of terminologies here. And let's go through each one with a focus on the terminologies that you're going to need for the test. So when we talk about quality management plan, as you guys can remember, um, this pertains to how are we going to go about, right? Figuring out, the things we're going to measure, where are we going to keep it? Is it going to be on SharePoint? Who's going to be doing the actual measuring of things? So the quality management plan talks about how we're going to go about to perform, these quality metrics, assurance and control, the actual measurements as to, if we passed or failed, that's not going to be in the quality management plan. Same thing with the risk management plan. You don't have the actual risk in that plan. It'll be how we're going to go about capturing the risk, how we're going to mitigate, things like that. So for the quality management plan, the focus is how we're going to go about to figure out what we're going to do in terms of quality, right? So, all right. So few key things here. So for the test, if you guys are writing things down, under quality metrics, write down specific measures. So quality metrics equals specific measures. Like what are you capturing? Right? Is it temperature, right? Is it change in size? Is it say for the car, how long it takes before, when you step on the brake, when you actually stop the car, right? So the actual, what are you measuring, right? So let's say patient has a fever, you give him Tylenol. How long before the fever breaks, right? Is it 30 minutes? So the actual measure, the specific measure, that is what quality metrics is asking you, right? Quality assurance. Okay, so write this down for the test.
Wait, you said quality measures equals what?
Quality metrics equals specific measures.
Oh, quality metrics
Yep,
equals.
specific measures. So this would be like temperature. This would be like size. This would be like how long before the fever breaks after you take a Tylenol, So quality metrics equals specific measure. Quality assurance is process oriented. So these are the activities performed. So write down quality metrics equals process oriented. All right. Oh, sorry, quality assurance, my bad.
Quality assurance. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Monica. Yeah. So quality metrics is specific measures. Quality assurance is process oriented. And quality control is product oriented. We'll go over that again. So quality metrics equals specific measures. Quality assurance equals process oriented. And quality control equals product oriented. So, Jeffrey, if I'm trying to figure out who's going to be doing the actual measuring, am I in quality assurance or quality control? You still there, Jeffrey? I think you stepped away. Lisette, if I'm trying to figure out who will do the actual measuring, am I in quality assurance or quality control?
I would say quality assurance,
Yes, because we're talking about
the process.
the process, yes. Um, if I'm measuring number of defects of the actual widget, so I'm focusing on the defects, is that quality assurance or quality control, Cinderella?
Control.
Control, exactly. Monica, if I'm trying to figure out the actual measurements, be it temperature, be it distance to full stop, be it time before fever breaks, what am I doing? What area am I in?
Quality metrics.
Quality metrics. Okay. Before I proceed, is everyone okay with the difference between metrics, assurance, and control? Because you're definitely going to have a question around these three.
Ian, when you said this, Alicia, when you said quality control, you said what was the definition? I understand the example, but I missed the actual.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
So product control equals product oriented.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Quality assurance is process oriented, and quality metrics is the specific metrics.
Got it.
Yep. All right. So now we're moving over to the right side. cost benefits analysis. So here you're looking at, you know, what are we getting at? What are we getting from improving the quality? So let's say, for example, a huge example was, did did you guys know that there was a time that wherein cars did not have seat belts?
Probably so, yeah.
There was a time where cars, right? Look at Victor. Believe it or not, seat belts was not mandatory until like, mid 80s or something. It's pretty recent, and cars have been around since what, 1850. So for like, 130 years, everyone was just like, nah, seat belts, schmeat belts. So what's the cost benefit analysis of having seat belts, right? Almost immeasurable, but you can measure it by looking at, after we implemented seat belts, how many deaths were diminished by doing that. You can just look, previous year and all of that. So there's a quantitative cost to it, but that's an extreme example of a cost benefit of improving the quality, right? So it's looking at the cost of quality, and I'll get to the definition of cost of quality in a second. So the cost of doing everything around quality and the benefits you get from it, right? So that's the cost benefits analysis. So you hear this a lot, right? What's the cost benefit analysis of doing something like this? And the reason for this is there's a point. So here's another term. It's not on the chart, but just write this down. There's this concept of diminishing return. So point of diminishing return. This is where you're adding more stuff, but you're not really getting much out of it. An example of this would be, and this is subjective, um, all the updates that we're now doing to the iPhone, right? So there's a new iPhone coming out again, and in my mind, the yearly updates is not worth is for like for you, Nick. Are you Android or Apple?
Android.
Android, okay. So for you, Nick, for Android, um, do you think it's the annual upgrades are worth it, or are you on like an every other year cycle for your phone?
I usually do 2 years.
3 years, exactly. So that's even a better example. So for you, the changes, the improvements in the quality year over year doesn't seem to be enough to merit you going out and getting a new phone. Is that a correct assessment?
I mean, yeah, the major concern is just the cost, right?
Right,
So
right. So that's
yeah.
exactly it, right? So we're talking about cost benefit, right? So that dollar sign of you going out and trading in isn't greater than whatever value you're getting out of it, right? So how about you, Alicia? Are you Android or iPhone?
I am a Galaxy girl, but I actually have an iPhone and I'm switching back. So yeah.
So, so, so the entire iPhone
I
altogether
was bamboozled.
isn't worth it.
Nope.
So that's yeah, so that entire category then is not worth it. So this is where you're looking at companies uh, do this. We're in I was looking at the latest specs of the 911, and I, it's still mandatory in Asia. Oh, Samsung, right? So like they're shaving off, I kid you not. Like you can get like carbon fiber windshield wipers that are like 600 grams lighter, right? In a car, right? So no, right? So it is not worth, right? The the cost of it is not worth the benefit you're getting, right? So that's when you look at, is it worth it? Is it worth doing what we're trying to do? So that's your cost benefit analysis. So cost of quality, and I do have a slide here. Just make sure I'm not kidding myself. Where's my slide? This one. Okay. So it's coming up. So I'll give you a preview here, but and we'll go into detail later when we get to that side. So basically, cost of quality is the total of all of your, if you're writing it down, prevention cost. And prevention includes like training, process improvement, appraisal cost. This is your testing. And the most expensive is failure cost. You don't need to worry about writing it down because I think I explained it all here. Yeah, it's all here. So don't worry. We'll get to it in just a few more slides. But just know that the total cost, the cost of quality, is your prevention, appraisal, and failure. So it's everything related to cost. And benchmarking, this is when you're comparing, right? What are the two types of benchmarking you guys remember from last time? One is internal, one is external. When you say internal benchmarking, you're comparing your current performance to what? Previous
projects.
performance. Yes, previous performance. Yep. So so you hear this a lot in the gym, you know, like your personal best, right? Your personal best, let's say for running or for weights, that's internal. External is when you're comparing that to you know, someone else or another company or whatnot. Quality audit, that's when you're looking at, you know, your quality metrics, assurance, control, just making sure that everything is in alignment. Process analysis, ooh, this is a good one. So process analysis, is that pertaining to quality assurance or quality control? Assurance, right. And we'll talk a little later too about different techniques like, you know, cause and effect, fishbone and all of that. I think I have a slide there for you. Measure quality. So measure quality. That would be under which one? The actual measurement. Is it metrics, assurance, or control? Metrics. Yep, metrics. And so there are two types of deliverables. There's what's called verified deliverables. And verified deliverables are quality based, meaning, you know, you have an ideal number and then you have your actuals. If they're equal or the same, then you're good. That's verified deliverables. So for the test, just write verified deliverables equals quality management. So verified deliverables equals quality management. Accepted deliverables equals stakeholder management. Let me repeat that. So verified deliverables pertains to the quality, right? So we said we're going to build a server with these specs. You're able to build said server with said specs. Then you verify the deliverables. Check, right? It's quality. Accepted deliverables is when, let's say Alicia is your stakeholder. You say, hey, Alicia, we're done with the build. Check it out. And even though it meets, right, your quality checks, if Alicia says, oh man, I was hoping it would do this, but it doesn't, then she hasn't accepted the deliverable, right? So accepted deliverables is stakeholder management. Another way to look at it is verified deliverables is objective. Accepted deliverables is subjective. Right? So verified deliverables, you're using measurements. Accepted deliverables, you're using opinions. You're asking your stakeholder, does this work for you? So that's the biggest difference between verified deliverables and accepted deliverables. All right. And quality measurement tools is, what you use to measure, well, what you said in your quality metrics. So if you're measuring temperature, that's a thermometer, so on and so forth. All right. That was a lot that we covered in just like 2 or 3 slides. So let me pause right there. We covered a lot here. Any questions on this slide? So Jennifer Mansourian, if I'm asking Carol if what we delivered was acceptable to her, am I checking for verified deliverables or accepted deliverables?
Verified deliverables?
So I'm asking, so this would be subjective.
Accepted.
Accepted. Yep. Carol, if I'm looking at my actual measurements versus my ideal measurements, am I looking at verified deliverables or accepted deliverables?
Verified deliverables.
Verified, absolutely. And Ebenezer, did I pronounce that right?
Yep.
Ebenezer, at the end of the day, what do you need to get sign off? Verified or accepted?
Accepted.
Accepted, yeah. You can have all the quality metrics in the world. If the stakeholder says that's not what I need, they're not going to sign off. So accepted. Yep, absolutely. All right. And so quality in that regard is the degree to which a set of characteristics, inherent characteristics, fulfill requirements. So if you fulfill the requirements, right, then great, that's high quality. So here's a tricky question, and then we're gonna go on break, right? So you have a Toyota Corolla and you have, let's say, a Ferrari, right? Which of the two do you think has higher quality?
The Ferrari.
Yeah, you'd expect a Ferrari.
Right.
Yeah, but the Corolla will run forever.
For the mileage and everything.
Well,
So-
so with the Ferrari.
So here's the thing. That's why this is a tricky question, because the colloquial or understanding of quality is that the more expensive something is, typically the higher the quality. That's why you're buying it, right? But quality for the purposes of the test, quality is the degree to which you're meeting what's expected. So Kenny got the Ferrari.
Hmm?
Ebenezer got the Corolla. Sorry, buddy. First 90 days, everything is going smoothly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Kenny has a smile on his face that he cannot shake off. Ebenezer, on the other hand, is like, man, why did I get the Corolla? But it works.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward a year, Kenny's starting to hear some things rattling in the engine. He takes it in. Oh, Kenny. Oh, we have this, loose gasket that we have to change. That's that'll be $5,000, sir. And Ebenezer, on the other hand, after a year, just maybe brake pads, if that, wear and tear stuff, just keeps on going. Fast forward 5 years from now,
He's with
Kenny
the Corolla.
is selling his kidney to keep up for this Ferrari with everything that's being replaced. Ebenezer, on the other hand, he's just swapping out tires. That's about it. Brake pads, tires, wiper fluid. So as you can see here, the Corolla, right, has a set of characteristics that closely fulfills the requirements. And what is the quality requirement of a car? Keeps on running, right?
Be able to run.
Keeps on running. So in this particular instance, the Corolla has a higher quality because there are less interventions that you need to do to keep it running. So with that, let us go on break and we'll leave the Ferrari with Kenny and Ebenezer. Keep the Corolla with you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we'll come back in 10 minutes, guys. So see you at 11:12. All right. Well, I actually have to let you guys go on break a little earlier. My wife was supposed to take my daughter to a doctor's appointment, but she can't make it back in time. So I know you're all bummed out that you have to go on lunch a little earlier. I know. Look at Kenny's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? We'll yeah, we'll adjourn at 11:30 here. And yeah, we'll come back again at 2. Um, so cool. So yeah, so any questions about the whole Ferrari Corolla example? Does that make sense in terms of quality?
I do have one about that. Does so if it's less interventions, that mean in this example, it's because the Toyota has more quality than the Ferrari?
Yes. So because our metric for these two cars is, it keeps on running, keeps on going, right? So the more that you have to intervene, again, outside of the wear and tear, like the tires, the brake pads, the more you have to intervene to replace this, change that, update this, fix that, then that means that by design, it didn't meet the quality standard. So one of the best examples of a quality product, bar none, is a pencil. Think about it. No, no break. I mean, there's the lead that can break, but for the most part, you can use it up until you can barely hold on to it. Compare that, to example, to a very expensive fountain pen, right? So, ideally, you would want the fountain pen to just keep on going, but that's not the case. It gets all clogged up, and you have to service that tip and all of that. So, um, there's actually a it's a true story. So remember the Cold War, where the US and Russia were, doing the space race, who can get to the moon first, man in space and all of that. So, um, well, one of the challenges when you're in space is, well, loss of gravity. So NASA spent millions upon millions of dollars trying to come up with a pen that can, write regardless of the gravitational forces against it. Because if you try to use a pen and you're like writing upside down or whatever, like it after a while it doesn't work too well. So they spent millions and millions. Do you guys know what the Russians did? They used a pencil. True story. True story.
Ian, but they can still sell those space pens for like $25 at every,
Smithsonian,
yeah, so maybe it paid for itself eventually.
trust me, I have one of those. And I still, every time I'm in DC, I still swing by and purchase one of those NASA pens. But yeah, that example, really stuck with me because and it's probably just not just it was some engineer in the back of the room that said, wait, why don't we just use a pencil? Everyone started looking at themselves. Huh, well, we can write upside down, and even if there's water, so it met all of the specs, right? And so they did. While NASA, they went straight to, okay, let's create this pen that can absolutely do all these amazing things without looking around and seeing if there's something that they have. So I really love that story in terms of quality because it met all of the requirements, right? So these are all the requirements, and the pencil was able to do it. But yes, no one goes to the Smithsonian to buy a pencil. So Melissa, absolutely right. Okay, so there are a lot of words, terms in quality that for the most part seem synonymous enough that they're interchangeable, right? But for the test, these words are not interchangeable. So I highlighted them for you so it's easier. So when we're talking about standards, so standards equals general consent. So think of standards more as norms, right? Like, Alicia has standards, right? So these are things that she holds herself to, but there probably isn't a, Senate bill for Alicia's standards. It's just what she, holds herself to. So standards are general consent. These are just, things that you expect. Regulations, on the other hand, when you use the word regulations, that means government mandated, right? Government mandated. So if it's relating to the law, that's regulations. If it's something that you expect, general consent, that's standards. So regulations. So here's something that gets a bit tricky because under regulations, there's this thing called de facto regulations, which is considered as widely accepted, but there isn't really a law for this. But it's just so widely accepted that if you violate it, um, you'll get in trouble. And I'll give you an example of this. Is everyone in front of your computer or a computer?
Yeah.
Look at your keyboard. The QWERTY, QWERTY on your keyboard, right? QWERTY. You see it, Kenny? Just those letters, like Q, right beside is W, right beside is E, it's R, T, Y, and UIOP, right? There isn't really a law that states that that's how your keyboard should look like, but all of us on the call, that's what's on our keyboard. So QWERTY, if you will, I'm running, oh, you have a different keyboard, Nick? Of course you would have a different keyboard. So there isn't a law stipulating that that should be, what's on a keyboard, but it's the de facto regulation. So all of our keyboards have this QWERTY on it. So that's what de facto means. Um, so no keyboard out there has the W before the Q if you're going from left to right. It's always QWERTY. So that's a de facto. The other one is de jure or mandated by law. So this one is pretty much the same as just regular regulations. And the ISO 9000, so these are just not just, these are standards that can be applied. So you can look at, let's say you have like like any appliance has the ISO 9000 behind. If you look at appliance, like you flip it, where the barcode is, right above that, there's like an ISO 9000 or 9100 and all of that. So that means that this product has gone through a check, a government check, and all products, especially appliances, need to go through some sort of ISO regulation check. So that's the difference between standards and regulations. Standards pretty much the norm, but the regulations are divided into two: the de facto and de jure. And de facto is what is widely accepted, and if you change it, like the QWERTY keyboard, you'll get in trouble. Or another one is like for your phone, for example, you have the accept the call and decline a call. That's not really a law, but you cannot not have that. So oh, no way. Victor, I did not know that. Has something to do with how easy you can spell typewriter? Speed, they had to to slow people down. Oh, nice. So Nick, tell us a little bit about that. This isn't on the test, by the way. Why the just so everyone. So that makes it
You got to remember back in the day, right? The keyboards didn't exist, right? The standard layout was developed for typewriters,
right.
and when they first developed it, they developed a system where people could type very fast, right? They put the keys that were used most often in the middle, which is actually more the Dvorak standard. So
Mm,
the keys that were most often were in the middle. Well, what happened was people were getting so fast at typing that they would, because with the typewriter, they had little things that come up, bonk, bonk,
yep, yep.
bonk, right? What happened is if you go it too fast, they would come up and hit each other and get
Hit each
stuck.
other. Mm.
So they came up with the QWERTY to slow people down to where now the likelihood of them typing fast enough for that to happen and it wasn't as it's stopped that from happening, so it actually increased the speed. But of course, once everybody learned how to type on a typewriter, all those people were used to typing, and then when they went to a electronical keyboard that doesn't have that limitation, everybody already knew how to use QWERTY, so to try to teach everybody else something else again,
Mm.
yeah.
I love this stuff. Wow. That actually really makes sense. I remember, if you're hitting like the letter E and the letter I, and you're doing it really fast, you start hitting each other. So now, you have those letters starting to have problems because they're banging up against each other as you're pressing on it. Um, this is a good test. How many of you have never used a typewriter? Raise your hand if you don't mind. Everyone has used a typewriter? Kelly, oh, nice. So, um,
It could be
yeah,
based on when you were born too.
um, it's having a resurgence. I now start seeing like old typewriters as displays in people's houses. Um, it's more for that than for anything, but a friend of mine, he's a writer. He actually uses his typewriter for thank you notes. So, and he, folds it and mails it. And it takes a lot of time, but I think there's something to it. There's something to taking the time to, either writing a letter with a typewriter or buying a physical card, and writing and mailing and getting it in the mail. What do you guys think? Do you think that art is outdated, or if you were to get something like that, would you be excited or be like, what on earth? How would you react?
I love it.
Yeah, I love the personalization of a handwritten letter, and it's more intimate versus I think a text is like distant and you can read between the lines, the way they write, whether it's cursive or I don't know.
Right, right.
There's
And
so many factors that just make it feel warm.
right. Jennifer, are you just raising your hand? You haven't used a typewriter?
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
Oh, no worries. Your digital hand. Yeah, we used to for those of you, Jennifer, haven't used a typewriter. We actually had typing lessons, and you would have to do this phrase, which was the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And that phrase had all the letters in the alphabet. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. So you have to do it over and over to practice all of the letters in the alphabet. So again, not on the test, but these are, that's an example of a de facto regulation wherein nowadays, your our computers are so advanced, but the idea of changing that QWERTY format is probably not something anyone is touching in a long time. All right. We talked about verified deliverables. Again, verified deliverables is based against quality standards, while accepted deliverables is based upon stakeholder. Which one is objective, verified, or accepted deliverables?
Verified
Accepted.
deliverables.
Verified. Yep. All right. So again, the quality management plan just describes how we're going to go about to implement, but not the specific measurements themselves. Yep. Describes activities. And before we go, I want to spend some time on this. Spend some time meaning 2 minutes. So when you're thinking about cost of quality, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. So there are two types. One is the cost of conformance. Like, how do we make sure that the product that we create adheres to what we want, right? Cost of conformance. And then there's another one called cost of non-conformance. What happens when they fail, right? What happens when it fails? So under cost of conformance, you have prevention costs, right? So prevention costs pertains to building a quality product. So this is where you train people. This is how I want you guys to do it. You document your processes. You have good equipment. You have enough time for people to train, get it right, right? So all of this is prevention costs. This is, trying to make sure that we get things right. Appraisal cost is so after, let's say we created a prototype, now we have to test it, right? Is it working properly? If it doesn't, then you have to, go over again and do your inspections. And so this is where you're assessing, like, is it doing what it's supposed to do? So two types of costs in terms of cost of quality. Cost of conformance is the cost of making sure that the product that we're creating adheres to, right, our standard. So under that, there's prevention cost, which pertains to building a quality product. This is your training. These are the documentation. This is the equipment. This is enough time for you guys to learn what to do. And then there's appraisal cost. This pertains to, all right, now that we've built the prototype, let's test it out. Let's inspect it. Let's make sure that it actually works. In the event that it does not work, right? Now we move over to the other column, which is the cost of non-conformance, right? So there are two types of non-conformance. The first one is internal. Oh, hold on. Am I recording? Yep, we are. So internal failure cost, this is where you catch it before you put it in front of a customer. So this is the rework, right? You catch the defective iPhone. You're like, oh, let's go back and fix it. Or if it can't be fixed, you scrap it, right? Like the whole thing is just like, okay, that didn't work. So you scrap it. To rework is when you can still work on it, and scrap if the whole thing is like totally, unusable. The worst type of cost is external failure cost. These are failures that are found by the customer. It has left the manufacturing building, right? So now you're talking about liabilities. Now you're talking about warranty. And if they're really pissed off, loss of business, right? So you want to focus on cost of conformance. You want to focus on making sure that people know how to build a great product. And this is what the Toyotas and the Hondas spend a lot of their time on. The cost of conformance. They train people. They make sure that the equipment is cutting, as precise as possible. So you don't have all of these expensive repairs that Kenny had with his Ferrari, right? So they focus more on preventative costs, appraisal costs, so that you don't have a lot of the external failures and eventually, customers, walking away from your product because they were so frustrated. So in summary, cost of conformance is money spent to avoid failures. Cost of non-conformance is money spent because of failures. So let's just do a quick check before we go. Pete, I have a customer who's asking how they will use their warranty. What type of cost is this?
Non-conformance,
And what type of non-conformance?
external failure.
External failure. Yep. Alicio,
Sir,
I'm working on a prototype and it's not to spec, and I'm working on it again. What type of cost is that?
you're working on it again?
Yeah, I'm getting that widget
Non-conformance?
back
Oh,
and fixing it, and
conformance.
it's non-conformance rework. So every time that you have to tinker with it, right? So you get it out like it's you're testing it, you're looking at it and like, oh man, I can't get my screw through this and I'm supposed to. Now I have to fix it. That fixing is rework. So that's cost of non-conformance, internal failure cost. Sweta, I'm sending you to Switzerland to learn how to create a Rolex watch. Let's say you're working for Rolex.
It's a prevention cost training, I think.
And that is cost of
Cost of conformance.
conformance, right? Nikki,
Yes.
you are doing inspections.
It's conformance costs
Under
under appraisal.
appraisal, all right? And last one, Jasmine Rojano.
Yes.
Jasmine, I am so pissed off about my iPhone that I actually am switching over to Samsung. What type of cost is that?
Cost of non-conformance, external failure cost.
Absolutely. And Monica, this is the cost because of failure. Is it conformance or non-conformance?
Non-conformance.
Non-conformance. Perfect. All right. So any questions on this before we go on an earlier break? Cool. So the focus is cost of conformance. The more you invest in that, the less you have to think about non-conformance. So thank you so much, guys. I will see you at 2, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.